maybe you get your...
Ladies and gentlemen, may I direct your attention to something most delicious, most palatable, a show for those with an insatiable appetite for the stories behind people, places, and things. What's the Recipe is where host Amanda Fowler chats with creatives, entrepreneurs, and the accomplished to uncover their one-of-a-kind recipe to success. How did they do it? What did it take? Pull up a seat at the table and indulge in the flavors of inspiration, innovation, and insightful dialogue. I hope you're hungry.
We are back, baby. Season 2 of What's the Recipe podcast. Hi, guys. It feels so weird to be back on a mic because I feel like we've taken a little bit of a hiatus, but it was much needed. And if you are new here, thank you for being here. Thank you for clicking. It's a great time to start listening to the podcast because there are some things that have changed, but a lot of exciting things happening. So I'll briefly introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. My name is Amanda Fowler. I am a content creator, podcast host, and mom of 2 living in Denver. And I primarily share on my pages about motherhood, wellness, self-growth, relationships, literally everything that I'm doing and feeling like sharing in a really honest way. I love to be honest. I don't sugarcoat anything. And that brings me to the podcast. And if you are not new to the podcast, you've been here before, you listened to season 1, you know that things look a little different because usually I have a co-host, but right now I don't. And get used to me. Get used to more of me because I fired Lucas. Just kidding. Well, technically I did. I didn't really fire him. We have a lot of housekeeping to do, okay? But before we get into that, I wanted to really explain what happened and what you can expect from now. So basically, if you have been following along Instagram, I think I talked about this recently, but Lucas is a software salesman. That's why we just went to Lisbon, Portugal, which in this episode, we are going to be recapping the entire thing. I'm going to be talking about what's the recipe to Lisbon, talking to you guys about my trip, but then also sharing things that if you're wanting to go to Lisbon, you can put on your recommendation list, but also just like having a chit chat with you, catching up like we're friends. I'm gonna catch you guys up on my trip because Lucas and I went without our 2 kids, which was a breath of fresh air. And I'm like, anytime I go on a trip, I like re-fall in love with Lucas. And I know it's so cliche to say, but it's true. I think that having 2 young kids and being 26 years old, like we had kids so young, we're figuring out our 20s, figuring out ourselves, figuring out our careers while we're raising 2 kids. And we get busy. We have a lot on our schedule. And sometimes we can go like days without actually like having a decent conversation. So that's why the podcast has been so helpful for us. But then also going on trips has been just amazing for our relationship. But anyway, I digress. Let's get into why Lucas is not here. So he is working a 9-to-5 job, right? He also does culinary school from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. 2 nights out of the week. So he is so damn busy. And I was finding that while my kids were in daycare, I was like sitting, twiddling my thumbs. If I didn't have anything to edit for my podcast or like any content to create for Instagram or TikTok, I found myself just like feeling limited by his schedule and not being able to do the podcast to the capacity that I wanted to because he had other priorities. And this was not like a crazy, heartbreaking, like big, intense work breakup. Because it's not really a breakup. Like Lucas will be joining me for a lot of episodes. But I think we just decided that like, if I want the podcast to be my thing, which it really is and always has been like my thing primarily, he was just the talent pretty much. Like he was just showing up for the episodes and then that's pretty much it. And so for me, I was like, look, I really want to take this to the next level. I want the podcast to be where I talk to my audience. I chat with my girls and my guys, and I really just put it all there. Like I wanted to put all of my eggs in this podcasting basket, but I can't do that when my co-host, who is like a large part of the podcast, is 1 foot in, 1 foot out because he has too many things going on. And so I'm curious for when culinary school is over in October, if he is going to become more of a larger part of the podcast. But I don't know. I think for right now, it feels so much better for us and for our relationship to let me spearhead this, and he pops on when he can. But then it's not putting pressure on him to show up and not disappoint me and do his part and do his job, and also not putting pressure on a relationship, because this is a business and we already do so much together and so much separately that we had such busy, crazy schedules. And then when it was coming to doing the podcast together, it felt like we were just arguing about everything and like disagreeing on things because he was stressed and I'm stressed, and it was a lot. It was a lot. So we've decided to let me kind of just like run this shit, just really take it by the balls. So What's the Recipe podcast, really where this is going and what you can expect from it, is I want to have taboo conversations with you that are always welcome at my dinner table. That's really the gist, is I want to interview creatives, entrepreneurs, accomplished individuals on their unique recipe to success, because at the end of the day, I love getting to know people and their stories and what got them from point A to point B. I feel like there are a lot of people in their 20s or early 30s who listen to this show, who follow me on social media and are feeling lost in what they want to do or who they are, or they have an idea and they have a career, but they don't know how to take it to the next level. So really, I'm super fascinated about how people become successful and the ingredients to that secret sauce, the ingredients to that recipe. So you're going to hear interviews here. You're going to hear interviews of creatives, entrepreneurs, accomplished individuals, anybody that I feel like is interesting and I want to know their story and learn from them. And then you're also going to hear me have conversations either alone or with people or with Lucas about topics. So I really want to blend all of this together and make it feel like we're having a chat over coffee, or we're at the dinner table together and you're leaving with a lot of insight and with a rich conversation full of flavor that you can learn from, you can take things away from. And so that's really what this podcast is going to be. And you can expect episodes weekly. So it's still going to be a Wednesday drop. And then I think I may sprinkle in, just like spice things up and do 2 episodes per week, or maybe like 2 episodes bi-weekly. So like consistently 1 episode and then bi-weekly have another bonus episode, because I do love doing those dish it out episodes where I can have you guys ask me questions and I can serve up answers to you, because I think one of the things that I love to do most is give unsolicited advice. It's like one of my favorite pastimes. And I want to do that here. So I do this like series on my Instagram called Should I Give a Fuck, where you guys will tell me like the situations and happenings in your life, and then I'll tell you whether you should give a fuck about them or not, or just move on. And I want to kind of bring that energy into here with the Dish It Out. So I'll basically put a question box up on the Instagram at What's the Recipe Pod every week, and you guys can message me and tell me about the things that are happening or like questions that you have, and I'll do a full episode dedicated to Dish It Out where we're talking about that. You can also expect some other fun segments as well, but I'm not going to just like show you all of my cards while we're first meeting. I did want to tell you about what we are talking about today, obviously, which is why I got in the mic. We went to Lisbon, Portugal. And I want to tell you why we went to Lisbon, Portugal. So again, Lucas has a 9-to-5 sales job. He is a killer. He is a shark. He is such a good salesperson. And I'm sure if you listen to some of our past episodes, you probably are not shocked by that. He's very charismatic. And he also just has a really great work ethic. But he is one of those people that has to be like tunnel vision. So it's hard for him when he's like focusing on his job to also put effort into other things. And so he has made this thing called President's Club 2 times in a row, which is basically you hit a certain amount of your quota and then you go over your quota. So you hit like, I think he hit like 125% of his quota. And then I think after that, like 125% of your quota is when you get to go to President's Club. So if you hit that, everybody gets to go to President's Club, the people who hit that. He hit like 166% of his quota. So he, because of that, gets to go on this big company trip. His company treats their employees so fucking well. And it kind of makes me want to get a corporate job. But just like for a second, you know, just like a second, I have that thought and then it passes. But going on trips like this honestly makes me so grateful for Lucas and for corporate companies like this who really do care about their employees and the people who honestly generate money for them. So last year, we went to Vienna, Austria for the President's Club trip, and it was so unbelievably incredible. We did Vienna, Austria, and then we actually extended on our own to Italy. So we did Venice and Roma, if you will. It's so funny when like you go to these countries and they have their own spelling and pronunciation of their country. Like Lisbon, we call it Lisbon, but it's Lisboa. So I'm like, what do I say? You know, it's even when I'm like in these countries and I want to say thank you or I want to speak to the people, like, do I try to speak Portuguese or do I just like speak English, be an American, you know? And it's so funny because in Portugal, they say obrigada for thank you. And I was so fucking hesitant to be like, obrigada, because I don't want to butcher it. I don't want to like come off like condescending, like I'm saying it wrong, you know? But I also think that they do appreciate it because there was this one woman who was amazing who we had a we had a sailing excursion with, and I said obrigada, and I was asking her a few questions about how to say certain things, and she's like, thank you for inquiring, because sometimes, you know, 5 years ago when we had Americans come over and visit, they would have never tried to like actually speak our language. So thank you. So that made me feel better and less of an idiot when I tried to pronounce it. And I think I did get it down towards the end. But it's a gendered language because as a woman, you say obrigada, but as a man, you say obrigado. So just take that do with that what you will. Anyway, we went to Lisbon, and I really want to recap it with you guys because I have never gone to Portugal. It was not even on my radar. When I said on my Instagram that I was going to Portugal, everybody was like, oh my God, that's an amazing country. Oh my gosh, that's where I studied abroad. Oh my gosh, I visited there last year. It was incredible. Like everybody has been there, but it was never on my radar. I think I just like think of wanting to go to Italy and wanting to go to France and Greece and like Finland because I'm 25% Finnish. I don't know. I never thought about Portugal. And I was pleasantly surprised. So if you don't know, I'm from Orlando, Florida originally, and so is Lucas. And so we grew up at the beach. We grew up on seafood. My death row meal would be crab legs and a few other things, but crab legs would definitely be on my death row meal. And so I was so excited to go to Lisbon because I didn't know before that it's like literally on the coast, and so it's all seafood. And I want to say like primarily the Portuguese food is seafood. They eat so much fish, so much octopus, cheese, like charcuterie board meats, bread. Like I think that's a lot of Europe, but they have so much seafood there. And so I was so stoked because I live in Denver now and I'm just not going to touch the seafood out here. It's just not worth it. So let's get into our trip. I'm going to go through it. We were there for, gosh, I want to say like 6 days. We were there from Monday to Saturday morning. So do the math. But I want to go over it by day with you guys. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of what we did, because we did a lot. And actually my intention was to podcast in Lisbon, but honestly, I don't think I ever had more than 30 minutes to lay in the hotel room. Like truthfully, we had so many dinners to attend and places to go and excursions and sites to see and things to do that I literally just could not find the time. So We're doing it now, and I'm going to recap it with you. And I actually like that I'm doing it now instead of while I was there, because I was able to be super present and not have to think about like what I wanted to say. And I was able to kind of like wrap all my thoughts in a bow and have all of the recommendations through the experiences that I had. But one thing about me, okay, I feel like I am somebody who loves routine, and I do love to plan things. I have a Google Calendar and I have a notebook that I always am writing down things that I'm doing, right? If I'm going to work for the day, I have my Notion to-dos. I have some to-dos in my notes app. Like, moral of the story is I love to plan, right? But if I'm traveling and it's not my trip, so if like I'm not spearheading the trip, it's like I'm a +1, I'm a passenger princess, I am not planning anything. I am going with the motherfucking flow. I'm not asking questions. I'm doing as I'm told. I'm just making sure that I'm there, I'm present, and I'm looking hot. That's my goal. That's all my duties are. Be present, be there, go with the flow, look hot. And I think I fucking slayed the assignment. So my point to that is I feel like a few things that I don't know the names of what we did and what I recommend, but you can easily look it up if you are interested in doing it, if you're going to Lisbon soon, or you just want to see. But there's a few things again that I just didn't get the names of because this was not my itinerary to create, you know? And also I have to mention, we were there with all of the other people in Lucas's company who made President's Club. So a lot of the dinners that we did with other people, or like the excursions that we had, the company provided for us. So it wasn't really something that I put together to begin with, but I definitely could have gotten the names for them. I don't know. I don't pay attention because I just want to live in the moment, you know? I'm more just like about the vibe and the view and the food and the taste and the wine. So let's get into it. Okay, day 1, Monday. We landed around 8:30 in the morning on Monday, and our room wasn't really ready until like 10. So I ended up passing out on one of the couches by the pool. And then we got into our room. We took like a 3-hour nap. And hot tip for you guys, if you want to have a successful time in a different country with a time change, then you need to get on the schedule. But for me, if I landed at 8:30 in the morning and stayed up all day, I would not have been able to make it, or I would have just like fallen asleep at 3 p.m. Or I feel like sometimes it does the opposite to me. Like it's like a child, you know, when they're overtired, they like don't sleep great. I think I wouldn't have slept great. So what I usually do is I can't really sleep on planes, and I don't like taking Xanax or anything like that. So I tried to snooze a little bit. I probably get like 2.5 hours on the plane. And then when I get into the hotel, which usually has been in the morning whenever we've traveled abroad, I always take like a 2 to 3 hour power nap. And it's always helped me because then I feel energized. And one thing about me, again, is that if I'm sleep deprived, I'm not a fun time. I've got a fucking attitude problem, and I'll let everybody know. So I need to get my good sleep. I need to get on the time change in the time zone so that I can have a good time and everybody else around me can have a good time. So we get in, and then I think we really just walked around a little bit, Lucas and I. We went to this place called Tapas 52. And this place was the cutest little like dive bar tapas place ever. We really wanted to go to this place called Tapisco. I think Lucas found it on a travel YouTuber's channel when he was researching for Lisbon, and it was closed when we first got there, and they didn't open for like another, I don't know, hour or something. And so we were kind of, you know, on a time crunch because we had an excursion later that night. And so we went to this place they recommended called Tapas 52. It was so freaking cute. We had the most beautiful octopus salad, a lot of vino verde, and we just sat there. There was like a cute window on the street where we could people watch, cafe seating. Like it was adorable, tiles everywhere. And we just had like a little tapas, vino verde, like happy hour kind of time, Lucas and I. So if you want a good place to drink wine and eat some food, they had like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how much they had on their list, like maybe 100 things on their list, on their menu for tapas. And we ate so much. So if you want a little quick bite, you want tapas, go to Tapas 52. It's delicious and the vibes are really great. And then we met up with our friends Taylor and Spencer, which, fun fact, and everybody was kind of blown away by this when we were there. Taylor and I, so Taylor works for Lucas's company, right? They work at the same company. Taylor and I were in diapers together. Like Taylor and I, our moms are best friends. They've been best friends for years. We grew up together. Lucas and Taylor have known each other since Lucas was 16, because that's when he met me. Like, we go way back. And to be able to travel to a different country with your best friend and her husband, who's also one of our best friends, like, that's special. That was probably one of the most special things I've ever experienced. To explore a foreign country with somebody familiar is just like the best. So we went on this sailing excursion, like the sunset sailing trip with them. Shout out to my friend Hannah, because she was the one who told us to book it. And this was literally just like an Airbnb experience. So we did that and it was amazing. The woman was just pouring Vino Verde, like literally endless amounts of Vino Verde, and that was the drunkest that I got. And you know what? I'm kind of glad, because I feel like if you blow it out the first night, you're less likely to do it again. And I didn't. I think I learned my lesson and I paced myself. Or I built my tolerance up, because I really didn't pace myself, but I didn't get as hungover as I did that night. So we did that and it was beautiful because we were on the water. We got to see a lot of sights. And honestly too, like, again, being in Denver, I'm craving an ocean. Like, I just want to be by the beach, by the water. And so it was so nice that I was able to get on a boat, because I haven't done that in forever. And I will say, we went at like 6 p.m. There was an option to do like a 1 p.m. or I think a 10 a.m. And I might have done, looking back, I might have maybe recommended doing the 10 a.m. or the 1 p.m. instead, because it was a little cold. So if you're going to go to Lisbon when we did, which was like end of April, it's still a little chilly. Like, it's not, coat weather. Like, I brought my big houndstooth coat and I didn't use it once because it's not coat weather, but it's like a jacket. And if you're going to be on the water with the wind and it being a little chilly at night, like, you need a blanket. So by the last like 30 minutes of the trip, of the sailing excursion, Lucas and I were like freezing our asses off. And we were like, we got to get the fuck out of here. So if you're going to go, maybe do it like in the afternoon, or like before noon, not at 6 p.m. But it was incredible. I really recommend it. Again, that's an Airbnb experience. The next thing that we did was we went to this restaurant called Pica Pow, because I think we went back to Tepisco. This is what we did. We went back to Tepisco and we were like, hey, you guys are open now. We don't have a reservation, but can we slide? Can we eat here? And they were like, you're funny. We're packed. We're booked. We don't have a reservation. They probably didn't have a reservation like that whole week, because I want to say they're a Michelin star restaurant, or the chef has Michelin stars. I don't know, something like that. And they couldn't fit us in. So they recommended another spot called Pica Pow. Yeah. Picapau. Pica Pow. And this place was so good. The vibes are really cool too. They had like this outdoor back patio area where we sat, and it was like tapas as well. The Portuguese, they love their tapas. Okay. Lucas, Taylor, Spencer, and I, honestly, we like loved the food, but we were like, that's it? Like, we didn't even have a full fucking meal. I did have this really yummy cabbage soup though, which I'm not like a big soup person, but it was so delicious. And I think I was just like a little cold and wanted something warm. So that was really great. And the vibes were great there too. We had great conversation. Like, the whole time it was just a vibe. And then we went over to this gin bar. This might have been why I was really hungover. We had like maybe 2 bottles of wine, of Vino Verde, at dinner. And then we went to the gin bar. It was called Gin Lovers. And we had gin drinks. We smoked a few cigarettes. I don't know what it is about Europe that makes cigarettes look so fucking fabulous, but it does. And I remember last year on the trip to Vienna, I probably smoked like a whole pack, honestly. Like, that was a time. Not doing that again, because my sinus issues are more important to me. But I remember last year, one of the girls tried to go into a store and get a vape, and the lady was like, this is cigarette country. We don't do vapes. Like, no. So she got cigarettes instead. But that's the thing. Like, everybody smokes cigarettes over there. And they sit outside of these cafes that are so fucking quaint and cute and aesthetically pleasing with their Aperol spritz and their ashtrays. And they just have conversations with their pals. And if it didn't kill you, that would be me every single day. I'm just going to put that out there. So we smoked a few cigarettes, and then I think we called it a night after that because it was getting late at this point and we had an entire week's worth of things to do. So then after that, Tuesday, we walked around, we shopped a little bit. We went to this awesome vintage place called Malala Vintage. I got the cutest fucking earrings ever. They're like dangly, like paperclip vibes, super cool, kind of grungy-ish, but very chic as well. And then I also got these shades, like these sunglasses that are not polarized at all or don't have like any, what's the word? Any like shading on the lenses. They're like see-through. So I got them because my good friend Anna has these glasses that I always steal from her that also are not like sunglasses. They have a little bit of tint on them, but they're not like sunglasses at all. You can still see her eyes. And I love them because I love sunglasses. Like, one thing about me is if I'm not feeling confident or if I'm not feeling... I love how I've been saying one thing about me this whole time and I've told you 5 things about me. Another thing about me is that I love sunglasses. And if I'm not feeling confident and if I'm not feeling like social or I'm just feeling like I don't really want to be perceived in like my full self, I will throw on some sunglasses. And like in the airport, I'm always wearing sunglasses. I don't know. I don't want to be talked to. I don't want to be perceived. It's like my way of kind of shielding out the bullshit, and protecting myself. So I have been really wanting to get sunglasses that I can wear inside at night all the time. And I don't have to worry about them like being dark and not seeing anything. And people being like, is that fucking Kanye West? Like, what's going on here? So I got these cute sunglasses and everybody loved them. And I loved them more importantly. And then I got this cute little white skirt. I got a cute like vintage Harley Davidson like tie shirt. I put the outfit on together and I literally looked like a Hooters employee. And I kind of loved that for me though, because I don't have any tits anymore. So maybe I'll be that for Halloween. But I also got a scarf / bandana and then a few rings, which I love. They're like chain rings. So if you're looking for a good vintage shop in Lisbon, you have to go to Malala Vintage. I am somebody that loves to go to vintage shops when I am in a different country or even a different state. Like, I just love doing that. It's fun. It's a great way to walk around and see the city. And I think we walked like 40 minutes from our hotel because we stayed at the Four Seasons, which again is why his company takes such good care of their employees, because Four Seasons. Sorry, I'm just stirring my coffee because I haven't had my coffee today. And so if you want to go thrift shopping, want to go to vintage stores, that's a great one in Lisbon. And then after that, we got some lunch at Chapito Messe is what it's called. And this place was so fire. The food was so good. I split a steak sandwich with my friend Taylor, and then we had like a side of potato chips or something, like potato fries. Like they were like potato wedges. I don't know, something potato. But we also had tapas. We had some vino verde. We had this passion fruit drink. But the view and the vibe here is so amazing. Like you go up these spiral staircases. You're kind of like already situated on a hill. And you see a beautiful view of the city and of like the water. It's such a great place to stop for lunch, to stop for like sunset time, like golden hour vibes. It was such a great place and the food was amazing. So the service wasn't that great, I will say that, but the food and the views and the aesthetic, like the ambiance, 10 out of 10. And then on Wednesday, the company planned like this treasure hunt for us. And at first when I heard this, I was like, a treasure hunt for moi? Like, is there somewhere where I can opt out of this? But honestly, it was good because we were able to see a lot of the city by walking and like running around and trying to find things that we were told to find. And again, like last year when we went to Vienna, we did a walking tour as well, where somebody was just like walking us through the city and telling us the history. And I actually kind of liked that better versus just like doing a treasure hunt, because I feel like I was able to learn more about the city and what I was seeing when we were doing the walking tour. But like, my parents growing up, because my dad played golf for a living, he traveled all the time, and we traveled with him all the time as well. So we never really traveled for leisure, and we never really did tourist things. Like, we never went to a spot and did a tour, or they just like weren't those type of people. And so I feel like I was groomed to think that walking tours are like stupid. And I still like, I'm not the first person to jump at it, but I do recommend it when you're in a historic place like Europe specifically, because Europe has so much incredible like architecture that's historic, and places that are historic, and restaurants and squares and just like cobblestone roads. It's a lot more charming and historical, and there's a lot more to learn throughout the city. And so I do recommend that. And that was fun because we got to taste the pastel genadas, which are these like little cream puff things that are, I don't even think they're like considered cream puffs, but they're like, I don't know, like a hard crust with a cream filling, and they are so good. I'm not like a big pastry person besides croissants, and these were so good. They're so sweet, so I don't think I had like more than 2 throughout the entire week, but they're like famous for them in Portugal. So you definitely have to get a pastel genada when you're there. They have like so many places. I know there's this one place that's like historic and famous for it, but they have so many places. You can find them anywhere. We also got these like cherry shots, and I need to remember what they're called. I looked it up. Ginja, maybe. I'm probably butchering the way that that's pronounced, but they're like, it's like a sweet cherry liqueur. And it was so good because it was super sweet at first, and then tart and kind of like sour, but then warms you up. And I was a little cold, so I needed it to warm me up, and it was great. I loved it. And I think that they're also like famous for that as well. And then when we were on the walking tour or the treasure hunt, we saw Pink Street, which is so cool. And Pink Street is like their famous street with like all these bars and shops and restaurants on it, and these like umbrellas, and it's just like a famous place where you go, and it's great for Instagram pictures, yada yada. And so we actually went down there, I think like Thursday night, and spent some time there, got some drinks at some bars, did a little bar hopping. Definitely not my scene, because I'm not like big into clubbing or like going to bars past midnight. I'm big into like sitting at a cafe and smoking a cigarette and having an Aperol Spritz in the daylight. But again, like I say cigarette, I know that they're bad for me, okay? I'm not like a big, well, I do love nicotine, but I don't have it often, okay? And so Thursday rolls around, and we got to pick our excursion this day. And Lucas and I, looking back, I feel like we would have maybe picked a different excursion just because we heard what the other excursions were like after people did them. And I feel like they might have had a cooler experience. And I say that because I feel like a lot of the trip was surrounding drinking, which like is kind of just what you do when you're in Europe. I feel like, at least I do, when I love to do, because I love to have a drink and a cocktail. But we did the Jeep and wine tour, and I feel like it was just a lot of sitting and a lot of wine drinking, which looking back, I feel like I would have loved to maybe do like a surfing excursion or the mountain biking, or one of those things where I could like move my body a little bit, you know, not just like sip some vino verde and eat bread. But, you know, it wasn't bad. I'm not complaining. So I don't know what the winery was. Oh, yes, I do. I do know what it was called. The winery is called Jose Maria de Fonseca Manor House. It's like a really, really historic, multi-generational winery. They have so many wines. They have Porto, which is like the dessert wine. They have Vino Verde. And I think they have a few other ones as well. They have like a red blend. But we did a lot of the Porto and the Vino Verde, and we took a Jeep through like the mountains of Portugal, like off-roading to the winery. And I will say, I think I got the better end of the stick, because when we got to the place where we were supposed to hop onto our Jeeps, which are like old, rickety Land Rovers. Like I'm talking, there's a front seat, a front row, and in the back, it's kind of like lifted a little bit, and you're sitting like sideways. You're not sitting front where you're like facing the front seat. You're sitting like sideways towards each other, like bench seating in the back. And I hopped in the back originally because I was like, oh yeah, like let's do it, off-roading, Jeep tour. And when I got in there, I almost hit my head on the ceiling. Like it was so short and low in there. And I was like looking, I like couldn't look out the window because I had to like bend down. So I was like, you know what? Is the front seat taken? Because I think I might snag that. And I got in the front seat, and it was the best decision that I ever made, because everyone in the back were like getting tossed around, rolled around. And I was just like up there taking pictures of the flowers and like asking the driver questions, like almost falling asleep to the motion of the Jeep. Like I was having a grand old time. And then we actually stopped at this beautiful lookout. I don't know what it was called, but it was like this panoramic view of the ocean. It was gorgeous. And then we went to the winery, which was really fun because they gave us a tour of the winery. They told us all the history of it, which I can't remember because I'm just like, I was focused on the wine. And then we sat down for like this beautiful lunch. Great food, great tapas, like great everything, honestly. Like it was a great experience. I just feel like maybe I should have went on a bike or something, but yeah, so we did that. And then later that night, we actually went to go see fado, which if you don't know what that is, apparently it's like a traditional Portuguese type of music or like type of song where I forget where it was originated, but I think it's like a mother's cry. It was like originated, oh God, I'm going to butcher this. Fado is a music genre which can be traced into the 1820s in Lisbon, Portugal, but probably has much earlier origins. Fado historian and scholar Rui Vieira Neri says that the only reliable information on the history of fado was orally transmitted and goes back to what is it though? Okay, so it says, in its essence, it sings the feeling, the heartbreak, the longing for someone who left the daily life and the conquests. So really, this is like we went to this like dinner place, this fado house, where it's like dinner and fado music. So it's like fado singers singing the music for like probably 10 minutes, and then they go take a break, and then somebody else comes in maybe 30 minutes later. And the fado music was so like soulful. You're like telling a story. It's also like a little bit sad. Like it feels just like heavy. It feels intense. And these singers are just the most incredible vocalists. Like a lot of them have like lower voices, and the way that they sing is just like, it's just like, so you feel it in your soul, you feel it in your heart. And it was so cool to see, honestly, because I know it's a huge part of their history. So I would honestly recommend that. It's kind of like dinner and a show. The food was good. Like you get to experience some of their culture, and it was magical. It was honestly such a good way to have dinner. But I forgot to mention, the night before, we went to this place called Cicero, Cicero, and it was the best meal that I had in Lisbon. I had like this amberjack clam dish with fit. It was just, trust me on this, it was the best meal I've ever put in my mouth. Like so good. The owner, Paolo, was amazing. He was talking to us. It was intimate. It was a small restaurant. There was like art all over the walls. He's like, yeah, I moved here from Brazil. I wanted to open a restaurant, and I also wanted to have a place where I can put all of my art that I have, that I've collected. So it's kind of like an art gallery meets restaurant, and it was so intimate and cute. But one thing about Europe, they love to have lengthy dinners, which I'm not complaining about because I feel like I digest things better. I have better conversation. It's just like a great way to spend the night. We sat at maybe 8:30 and didn't leave until like 11. So we had a great time. And then Friday was a day where we had to ourselves. We didn't have anything really on the schedule. So Lucas and I wanted to go to this place called Neighborhood for breakfast, which is something that we heard about from that YouTuber that I mentioned, and his like Lisbon guide. And this breakfast was unreal. I had like avocado toast with eggs with kimchi, with like a spicy kimchi, which was so interesting because I always put hot sauce on my avocado toast, and it was kind of like that, but added texture. Like the kimchi was spicy, like a hot sauce, but it added texture that I feel like I needed. So it was so delicious. And then we had this like banana bread thing. The coffee was amazing. The only thing I drink when it comes to coffee in Europe is cappuccinos. Like that's the only thing I drink. It's the perfect amount of milk. They make it so good over there. I don't know what they do. They pour like fucking gold into it. I don't know. It's so good. So we did that, and then we actually got tattoos. So if you didn't see on my Instagram, I put a little vlog up. We basically, throughout our entire time there, we're taking pictures of tiles around the city because Lisbon is like known for their tiles around the city. I think it's like, it dates back to a part in history where, like, I don't know, some people brought it over to Lisbon, I think, and it just like spread throughout the city. And there are so many buildings with tiles on them, just like literally tile buildings, and they're beautiful tiles, like the most intricate, complex, pretty, like colorful, cool, abstract, whimsical, like floral. There's like the tiles are something in and of itself to just wander the city for. And so we took a picture of a lot of the tiles, and we picked one later that week to get tatted on us. It was actually Lucas's idea, and we got the same tile. He got a little bit of shading in his, and I just got line work, and I love it. And the tattoo shop was great. I made an appointment the day before. So like they're super open. They do take walk-ins. It's called Root Lisbon, and we actually looked up the guy on Instagram as well. Well, Lucas did, and he's like super well known, and he does such a good job. I forget his name, but I can find it if anybody wants to know. But Root Lisbon, it's amazing, and that's where we got these. And they honestly were cheap too. Like they really were not super expensive at all, but we just thought it'd be a fun way to like make a memory, you know, like have the memory of Lisbon and commemorate like our experience here, and get like, instead of a souvenir, like get a tattoo, you know? And then actually we went to this place because we walked around a little bit. We went to this place called Amente, which is actually the shirt that I'm wearing right now. And it's this skater brand. Like it's like a skateboard. Well, it's like born from skateboarding culture. And because like I don't skate, so don't judge me for that. But the clothes were so cool. It's like streetwear, you know, clothing. And the logo is this baby sitting on a skateboard, but it's like more of like a cherub baby with like beautiful locks of hair and like a pudgy body with a skateboard. It's so cute. And I honestly don't have any like hot pink things in my wardrobe. So I was like, I'm getting the hot pink shirt. But they had a lot of good stuff. Lucas got a shirt as well, like a striped yellow shirt, great quality, like definitely a must. If you're going to Lisbon to shop, you have to go. It's a Portuguese brand. Like you got to go. And then lastly, we went to this place called Time Out Market, which everybody recommended when I was telling people that I was going to Lisbon and asking for recommendations. Time Out Market is this huge food hall in Lisbon, and it's beautiful. It's kind of near the water. And there's this like courtyard, like square in the middle where there's a kind of like a market going on. There's like people singing, like little like people playing guitar and singing. But then inside it's a lot of vendors. So there's like a produce area, a restaurant area, and then like a plant shop. It's the coolest thing, and it's fucking huge. And all of the food vendors are like incredible. And there's like bars. There's also people who, you know, like artisans, people who make like souvenirs, people who make home decor, people who make clothes. And I got this sick ass jacket. And if you've been on my Instagram, I've posted it many times. It's like this floral, colorful jacket that I got from the market that's actually reversible. And it's like blue and white striped on the reverse side. It's my favorite jacket that I've ever gotten, and I got it from like this local woman, and it wasn't expensive at all either. And so Time Out Market, you have to go. We had the best, I want to say, pork belly sandwich. So Lucas really wanted to go to this place that Anthony Bourdain recommended for these Bafana sandwiches, which are like pork that's marinated in garlic and spices and white wine. And we went to the shop that he wanted to go to, and the line was out the door forever. And we waited, but then like the sun came out and Lucas was getting so sweaty and hot, and he's like, fuck this, I'm not standing in this line. Like I can't do it. We'll come back another time. Like next time we're in Lisbon, we'll do this. And so I was like, oh shit, okay, whatever. But I was like, I still want a sandwich. Like that sounds so good. So we went to Time Out Market, and there was a place that was selling Bafana sandwiches. So we got one. And when I tell you this was the best sandwich I've ever had in my life, I'm not exaggerating. Like this is a must. And if you don't go to the place that Anthony Bourdain recommended, which I am blanking on the name, go to the one in Time Out Market. I also can't think of the name, and I tried to look it up and I can't find it. But you'll see there's like vendors all around the Time Out Market, and you can find the place that has the sandwiches, and it's just amazing. They had like these potato chips, but they weren't like fried like that. They were like it was just, you could tell everything was so well made and homemade. It was amazing. And then we left on Saturday morning. We flew out at like noon, got home at like 7:40, and it was just a fabulous time. Lisbon is one of those places that I feel like I could have explored for much longer, but you also feel like you can do in a week and be very satisfied. I loved the city. I loved that it was coastal. I loved that the seafood was accessible. Like, I'm just a seafood girly. The cuisine, I feel like, was very much my speed versus like Vienna was a lot of like bratwurst and bread. I mean, all of Europe is bread, but like I'd much prefer seafood over bratwurst. So it was a fabulous time. And if you're going to Lisbon soon, I hope that these recommendations or my recap of the trip was helpful for you. I really wanted to do like a what's the recipe to Lisbon. And I also want to do this for other places that I go and visit too, because something that I'm realizing about myself is travel has been so ingrained in my being for as long as I can remember. Because like I said, like I traveled for my dad's job my entire life. And while my parents weren't really like the most touristy people, I had a blog and I had an Instagram, and I loved to explore the culture and, you know, take fashion inspo from the culture and try their food and just like see the cities and see the sights. So it's something that I really want to incorporate into the podcast more too, is like whenever I go travel somewhere, I want to do like a what's the recipe to yada, yada, yada. And maybe Lucas will join me, maybe he won't. But I just really wanted to come back on here before I get into releasing interviews and be like, hey, hi, some things are a little different, but it's still at the core. This podcast is for people who want to improve their lives through hearing other people's stories. So who wants to be inspired, who feels like they have a lot of dreams and they don't know how to reach them, who really also just want to be entertained and learn more about culture and people and stories and things and topics. And again, if there's one thing that I'm not afraid to do is have an open conversation about things that people might not be talking about. So you can expect conversations on taboo topics or just like topics that are deep and, you know, that you want to have over the dinner table. And again, that's how I want it to feel. I want you to feel like you just sat down with me for coffee, or you just sat down for me or with me for drinks and a meal and left feeling full. So thank you so much for listening to this. I cannot wait to get into season 2. And if you do not already follow us on Instagram, please do. It's at What's the Recipe Pod. And then also on TikTok at What's the Recipe Pod. Thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, please give it a rating and review, because this is how the show is going to gain traction in other people's eyes on it and ears on it as well, is by you rating and reviewing it. So thank you guys so much for listening. This episode is officially 86th.